Hello, I'm Frank Butler, President of Fatica, an association of private foundations and donors that share an interest in Catholic institutions and programs. I've been asked by the Leadership Roundtable, our host for today's conference, to assist your discussion on the current financial challenges of the Church from a national perspective. I'll discuss the scope of the Church's institutional commitment in the U.S. and why I think the Church's ministry is seriously underfinanced. Then I'll offer 7 measures that could improve the Church's financial management and outlook. First, to put today's discussion in context, let's review briefly the scope of the Church's vast institutional presence in the United States. Directly under the administration of the nation's 188 dioceses and archdioceses are nearly 19,000 parishes, 6,500 elementary and high schools, enrolling over 2 million students, and 2,500 social service agencies that serve 3 million people annually, with everything from daycare to senior care. There are also 560 Catholic hospitals, 235 colleges and universities that are under the canonical jurisdiction of the bishops, but are usually sponsored by religious orders, and therefore they don't depend on the local bishop for their finances. That's a lot of charity and a lot of fundraising. In fact, parish collection baskets alone take in about $8 billion each year. But many dioceses are facing a financial crunch. Most of us are familiar with the closing of 65 parishes in the Archdiocese of Boston this spring. Tucson may be the first diocese in American history to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy because of current lawsuits and a long history of poor financial decisions. This is a tough time for the Church to be financially on the edge. The Catholic population is growing, and there are fewer clergy and religious to minister to that population. Last year, the number of diocesan priests available for parish service shrank by 3,000. The clergy's sexual abuse crisis is, of course, one of the major contributing factors to the Church's financial problems, but there are many forces at work. Despite the growing affluence and social mobility of 68 million Catholics in the United States, the Church, despite common assumptions, has actually not been an especially successful fundraiser. National polling has consistently reported that Catholics give about 1/2 of their Protestant counterparts, or about $367 per household annually. I might also add that in a typical parish, only about 18% of those in the pew are contributing. The Church has a serious underfinancing of its ministry. For example, there are more Catholic schools closing today than opening, despite an amazing educational track record and a growing population of Catholics who would like to attend these schools. A steady attrition of parochial school teachers to better paying positions in the public system, rising costs associated with aging facilities, and a changing student population have proven to be insurmountable forces. Another example of how underfinancing is hurting the Church is in the burgeoning area of lay ministry. There are over 200,000 lay people who have stepped forward to serve the Church in administrative and ministerial roles. That's the good news. But the bad news is that there is little scholarship assistance available to prepare lay ministers for these roles. They must fend for themselves to acquire their education, and so none of us can be certain that the quality of their ministry will meet expected standards. It would be unfair to say that the Church has been derelict in its duty to see to it that its ministries are improperly funded. Each year, Catholic parishioners are asked by the bishops of the U.S. to support appeals totaling over $100 million to combat world hunger and domestic poverty, support mission dioceses in developing countries, help retired religious women and men, and other worthy causes. Bishops have issued a national call for better stewardship, adopted norms for the handling of funds, and are guided by canon law in the handling of church property and financial matters. Many dioceses now employ professional people to coordinate their fundraising and help stimulate parish giving. But why are dioceses on the verge of bankruptcy? Why are parishes and schools closing? Why, then, is the Church's ministry so underfinanced? Let's look at it from the standpoint of the parishioner. When our Association of Private Foundations, Fatica, conducted a Gallup survey of frequent Mass-attending Catholics last year, we found that 1/2 of them had no idea what happened to their donations. We found that 75% of Catholics in the pews felt that the Church should be more accountable on financial issues. These are the kind of attitudes and perceptions that can hurt you when you're raising money. but these impressions are unfortunately right on target. In too many cases, dioceses and parishes do not operate openly and meaningfully engage lay Catholics in the financial planning, accounting, and fundraising of the Church. In this short video, we can suggest a few areas of constructive reform. Each of you will want to add to the list. Here are 7 ideas which you may want to jot down as you begin your discussion. Every diocese ought to be compliant with Church national financial standards. This is not now the case. Excellent guidelines are adopted by the bishops nationally and then ignored at home. An accreditation process should be developed to assure Catholic donors that dioceses are in compliance with national financial standards adopted by the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. Each diocese and parish should subscribe to a policy of transparency and publish annual financial audits in their entirety. The responsibilities of parish and diocesan financial councils ought to be spelled out clearly, and these entities should be greatly strengthened. It is not uncommon for financial councils to be left in the dark about pending financial matters. Many are given no guidance on their role. Church leaders should provide more forums and listening sessions for the ordinary Catholic where financial decisions of dioceses and parishes can be aired. A process of financial planning ought to be employed by the Church at the national level so that resources appropriate to the needs of the Church in the future can be developed and national appeals can be restructured to accommodate them. The Church needs a very serious examination of the current manner in which it is raising funds at all levels. Serious thought ought to be given to better national coordination of appeals. A more complete accounting of where funds are going, better methods of fundraising beyond the old collection basket, and better ways for Catholic foundations and charitable agencies to work together. These are only some of the concrete ways that the Church could improve its financial management. As a participant in the discussions, you will have other ideas that will aim to increase participation and involvement in the Church's fundraising and financial management.